What is the #1 tool in your plant propagation toolbox? Bottom heat. We're going to cover it all right here, but first, a word from our sponsor. First of all, hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the website down below, and you can get access to everything I do around here. All right, let's get on with the show. All right, so bottom heat is one of my absolute favorite subjects to talk about when we're talking about plant propagation. Bottom heat is a fabulous tool to have in your tool belt. You can use bottom heat to encourage those roots to grow much faster, thank you, Henry, and more assuredly than without it. If you don't have some type of bottom heat in your setup, you need to watch this video and you need to get on the bottom heat train. I've got a lot of videos I've done over the years with bottom heat. We've done green giants, we've even done some roses, we've done lots of fig cuttings with bottom heat. I think I even did some dogwoods, yellow and red twig dogwoods. So there's a lot of them on this channel, and I'll put links to all that down below in the description. But we're going to talk about why bottom heat is so important, how it can help you guys to be better plant propagators, especially through the winters. So let's just start this whole thing off from the basics so we can see the whole picture. Now, with the plants, I've talked to you guys about this before quite a bit. There are certain cells within these cuttings, within these plants, called undifferentiated cells. You can think of them as stem cells, and they are very highly concentrated at the different nodes along the stems of the plant. Those undifferentiated cells can turn into anything that the plant needs. Just like in our human bodies, we have the stem cells, and they can turn into white blood cells or bone or, whatever. These undifferentiated cells can differentiate and turn into stems or leaves or flowers or, roots or any different types of material that the plant needs at that time to thrive and do whatever it has to do. Now, when we take a cutting, we typically like to take it below a node, like just below a node, because there is a higher concentration of these undifferentiated cells around the node. And what we're trying to do is encourage those cells to turn into roots so that the plant can then take up water, grow top growth, and voila, we're on our way and we've got a new plant. Now, these cells, like any other cells, will multiply and divide at a rate based partly on how warm it is or what the temperature is. Now, the ideal temperatures for plant propagation that you'll usually see listed are somewhere around 78 to 82 degrees. There's a broad range of which you can propagate plants in. About 55 degrees up is when cell growth starts happening in the plants, and I have rooted cuttings all the way up just over 100 degrees just for experimental purposes. The higher the temperatures you have, the faster those cells will multiply and divide, and the faster the plant will be able to do whatever it needs to do in order to form the roots or the leaves or whatever it needs at that time. Now, this is where the bottom heat comes in. You can actually control how much warmth is down there at that root zone or potential root zone, and you can actually coax those cells to multiply and divide faster and get the roots before the tops start growing. Now, there is a range that is best for this root growth to occur, like we said, 78 to 82 degrees. But there's another rule that I've talked about on this channel that I try to kind of adhere to. It's not perfect, but it's best to keep the bottom heat about 10 degrees warmer than the tops of the cuttings. And so if you are actually trying to root a plant where the outside temperatures, say it's the winter time and you're doing some hardwood cuttings, the outside temperature is 50 degrees. You want to try and get that bottom heat at around 60 degrees. You're not trying to crank it all the way up to 80. And so you want to be careful about getting the bottoms so excessively hot, 80, 90 degrees, and the tops 40 degrees, because I don't think that would be real beneficial for those cuttings. It'd be fighting itself on temperature. You might wind up with problems. I don't know. Maybe we need to do some experiments on that. Typically, though, what's taught is keep the bottoms about 10 degrees warmer than the ambient air. Now, of course, when we're talking about summertime and you're doing tender softwood cuttings, you don't need bottom heat. And I don't recommend bottom heat for softwood cuttings that are in a sealed container, a sealed tote. because what it does is just heat up the bottoms, and then all that warmth floats up and stays around the tops as well. And everything starts rooting like crazy. Or it can also promote rot because there's too much heat and moisture in that little tote. Where I do promote bottom heat is in the wintertime with hardwood cuttings, where you're not covering the tops of the cuttings. That way you can keep the root zone, or the potential root zone, at a specific temperature 10 degrees warmer than the tops of the cuttings, or about 10 degrees warmer. Now, there are many different types of bottom heat you can use. You're only limited to your own imagination. You could run hot water pipes, you can run electric cables, you can use heat mats. There's lots of different ways to get that bottom heat, but I want to show you what I just picked up. And there it is, another Cozy Products heat mat. So I love these things. Now, this is not typical for heat mats for propagation, but like I said, you're only limited to your own creativity. This is actually a boot warmer. You're supposed to put your boots on it inside your house and warm them up so that when you go out for the winter, your boots are warm. But I love the solid sturdiness of this thing. It's made of just solid rubber. You can water plants right over top of it. It doesn't matter if it gets wet. There's nothing to worry about where it comes to electricity. It's just a nice, solid, heavy-duty heat mat. Now, I'll put a link down in the description to this product on Amazon. You guys can check it out if you want. But it's what I like to use for heat mats, mainly because it's just so solid and durable. So like I said, I've done lots of videos with bottom heat and hardwood cutting propagation. And we're going to do a lot more as we go along, but that is exactly what I like to use when I'm doing small projects like those green giants, and I can fit 60 or 100 of them in a little tote. The other thing is, a lot of those plastic totes I use fit perfectly right on top of that heat mat. Now, one question I get is, hey man, this is not a typical plant propagation heat mat. So how do you regulate the temperature? Well, over the years, I've done different things. One of them is I put a grate underneath the mat, and then I've put dowels or little sticks of wood on top, and then the totes on top of that. And you can raise those totes up off the heat mat if you need to kind of decrease the temp a little bit. This one right here has two different settings on wattage, and so you can turn it up or down a little bit that way too. But if you wanted to get real scientific about it and you wanted to have things dialed in exactly, you can simply buy a thermostat. You can find thermostats on Amazon. In fact, I'll put some links down below to some, and you can check those out. But you can actually buy a thermostat that just, this mat will plug right into. The thermostat will plug into the wall, and then there's a little probe attached to the thermostat. You plug it right into your soil, and then it'll turn on and shut off based on the temps you put in there. It'll just adjust the temperature right at the soil level. So you can dial things in exactly where you want them. So there you have it. That's a quick down and dirty on bottom heat. It's absolutely wonderful. It's one of my favorite things to use in the wintertime, in the early spring when we're talking about plant propagation, because you can greatly speed up and increase your chances of success with these cuttings. So I hope you guys learned something from this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to follow along, and we are not done yet, because with this series of videos, we do an update on something, and I've already got the update for you because somebody asked me about it just the other day. Let's go check it out. So here's the hoop house in the winter time, and everything's looking a little bit sad because it is freezing cold out here right now. The figs are looking sad. The roadies are looking sad. We're coming along though. Don't worry. Everything is going to be just fine. And there's our update. You guys have been looking at this over the last couple of years in the background of all my videos. And if you guys have not seen the original series on these English laurel, go check it out. I'll put links in the description below. But I did an entire series on building a frame and rooting 100 English laurel. It was actually a fun little series. I really enjoyed how the videos came out. And here is what we've got. You remember when these things were just, this is just like 101 gallon pots in here. You remember when they were just 6 inches high and they all looked the same and beautiful and perfect? And I completely let these things get out of control. I've just got too many different projects going on. But you can see these things, this is trouble. This is going to be a problem. I'm going to do a video about all this. But these have rooted into the ground. Look at the size of these stalks. These are trees now. They're trees, and they are growing in 1 gallon pots. So that tells you right now that these things are not just growing in 1 gallon pots. These things are growing into the ground. Their roots are solidly in the ground, and I am gonna have some serious problems here. I have got to get all this pulled out of here. Some of them, a couple of them died. There's one right there. A couple of them died back just because I couldn't keep enough water on them through the summer. But these things are in trouble. They've rooted into the ground. They're still alive. They're still fine, but I need to pull them up. I need to get them out of there, repotted into 2 or 3 gallon pots, trimmed all the way back to the bottom, and start over with them. It'll work out fine because they're essentially hardwood cuttings with some root attached. If I cut them off where they're going into the ground and then cut them off 6 inches above the soil level or a foot above and repot them, they should start growing just fine through the spring, and I won't actually need bottom heat for these because they've already got root attached. But there's your update. These things are out of control. They're beautiful though. Look at those big, beautiful green leaves. They're growing awesome. They're just rooted into the ground in the hoop house. Now, why am I not too worried about this? Because this hoop house, Shelly and I have decided, down the road is going away. All this is going to be gone. If you guys keep following along, you'll see the vision eventually of what we're doing here over the next couple of years. But we're going to build a hoop house, a bigger hoop house somewhere else on the property that's going to fit things a lot better around our place. Anyway, there's your update. English laurel, go check out the original videos. I'll have links. And there it is, guys. Those things have grown completely out of control. I have been a bad plant parent to those English laurel, but we're going to do something with them, and I'm going to get that whole corner under control so that I can actually put more plants in there. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, you know what to do. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to follow along and see what those things turn out to be and do around here and where we're going with them. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.